The council room was quiet. Too quiet. High Counselor Tevrin stood before the gathered leaders of 50 different worlds. His crystal body flickered with blue light, showing his fear. Around him, beings of all shapes watched with worried eyes. The hologram in the center of the room showed death. Planet after planet turned dark as the Ravagers moved through space like a disease. These were not simple creatures. They were machines made of metal and flesh, always learning, always changing. Every weapon the Council used against them stopped working after the first battle. Tevrin's voice shook when he spoke. His people, the Vexari, had lived in peace for 10,000 years. They built beautiful cities of crystal and light. They made art and music. They did not make weapons. Now 3 of their colony worlds were gone. Millions of his people were dead. "We beg for help," he said to the Council. "We have tried everything. Our shields fail. Our weapons do nothing. The Ravagers learn from every attack. They grow stronger while we grow weaker." The Council members looked at each other. They all knew the truth. The Galactic Council was made for peace, not war. Their ships were designed to explore, not fight. Their soldiers were trained to keep order, not kill. None of them knew how to stop something like the Ravagers. Ambassador Vol of the Mantry spoke next. His people were insect-like beings with gentle spirits. "We could send our fleet," he said slowly. "But we all know what will happen. The Ravagers will adapt. They always do. We will lose our ships and our people, and they will still come." Silence fell again. It was the silence of defeat. The greatest minds in the galaxy had no answer to this threat. They had built a civilization that lasted for millions of years, but they had forgotten how to fight. Or maybe they never really knew. Then a young voice spoke. Junior Counselor Zethar was barely 200 years old, young by Council standards. She was from a world of scholars who studied other species. She had been reading reports about a newly discovered world called Earth. "What about the humans?" she asked. The room went very quiet. Many council members shifted uncomfortably. Everyone had heard of humans. They came from a Category 12 death world, a planet so dangerous that most species would die there in days. The reports about them were disturbing. They fought each other in terrible wars. They had hundreds of words for killing. Their bodies could survive injuries that would kill most beings. Counselor Sephirin spoke up, his feathers ruffling with concern. "The humans are unstable," he said. "Their history is filled with violence. They kill their own kind over small differences. Their world has shaped them into something we cannot understand. They see threats everywhere. They plan for war even in times of peace." "But that is exactly what we need," Zethar replied. Her voice was steady. "We need beings who understand violence, who know how to fight wars we cannot imagine. The Ravagers are not going to stop. We can keep talking about peace, or we can ask for help from those who know war." The debate went on for hours. Some council members refused to even consider it. Others argued that humans were too dangerous to bring into council space. But in the end, fear won over pride. The Ravagers were coming, and nothing else had worked. The vote was close. 27 for 23 against. The council would ask humanity for help. Tevrin felt relief and terror at the same time. What kind of beings had they just invited into their perfect civilization? The message was sent that day. It traveled through space at faster than light speed, reaching Earth's orbital station in 3 days. Ambassador Sarah Chen received it in her office. She was a human in her 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served in Earth's military before becoming a diplomat. She understood both war and peace. She read the message 3 times. The Galactic Council, those peaceful beings who had barely acknowledged humanity's existence, were begging for military aid. They were desperate. And desperate people made bad decisions. Chen called a meeting with Earth's military commanders. She showed them the message. She showed them the data on the Ravagers. The room filled with grim faces. These were men and women who had seen war. They knew what the council was really asking for. Commander Arya Zhang spoke first. She was younger than Chen, but she had led troops in 3 different conflicts. "This is bad," she said quietly. "These Ravagers adapt to everything. We would need to hit them hard and fast with weapons they have never seen. And we would take heavy losses." Chen nodded. "The council does not understand what they are asking for," she said. "They have lived in peace for so long they have forgotten what war looks like. When they see what we have to do to win, they will be horrified. But if we do nothing, these Ravagers will eventually reach Earth." The commanders agreed. Earth would send help. 3 warships would go to Vexari space. Chen would go with them. She would need to prepare the council for what was coming. War was not clean. It was not noble. It was brutal and bloody and necessary. That night, Chen stood at the window of her quarters looking down at Earth. It was a beautiful world of blue oceans and green land. It was also a world that had tried to kill humanity for 200,000 years. Ice ages, diseases, predators, disasters. Humanity survived by being stubborn and violent and clever. She thought about the council members, safe in their climate-controlled rooms, never having faced a real threat. They were about to learn something terrible. Sometimes the only way to protect peace was through violence. Sometimes you needed monsters to fight monsters, and humanity had been fighting monsters since the beginning. The ships would leave in 2 days. Chen sent her reply to the council. It was short and simple. Help is coming. But she wondered if they understood what that really meant. The 3 human warships appeared in Vexari space without warning. One moment the sensors showed empty space. The next moment 3 massive vessels were there. The Vexari monitoring station went into panic. These ships looked nothing like the elegant vessels of the council races. Human ships were angular and gray, covered in armor plates and weapon systems. They had no smooth curves, no beautiful designs. They looked like what they were. Machines built for one purpose. War Kistal was the Vexari officer chosen to work with the humans. He boarded their command ship with his heart pounding in fear. The inside of the ship was just as harsh as the outside. Metal corridors with bright lights. Everything was practical. Nothing was beautiful. It felt wrong to him. Commander Zhang met him in the briefing room. She was tall for a human, with dark hair tied back and sharp eyes. She did not smile. Next to her stood other officers, all watching Kistal with expressions he could not read. "Welcome aboard," Zhang said. Her voice was flat and professional. "We have reviewed your data on the Ravagers. We will need detailed information on their capabilities, their patterns, and the locations of their hive ships." Kistal provided all the information his people had gathered. Zhang listened without emotion. When he finished, she brought up a tactical display. It showed human battle plans. Kistal felt sick looking at it. "You plan to use nuclear weapons," he said, his voice shaking. "In space, near our colonies." Zhang looked at him calmly. "Yes," she said. "Nuclear-tipped missiles are one of our most effective tools. The Ravagers have never encountered them. The radiation will damage their adaptive systems." "But the radiation," Kistal protested. "It will spread. It will contaminate everything." Zhang nodded. "Yes, that is acceptable. We will provide radiation cleanup protocols after the battle. The alternative is letting the Ravagers consume your worlds." Choose Kistal had no answer. The humans also planned to use kinetic weapons. Massive metal rods accelerated to incredible speeds. They would hit with the force of bombs. They planned to use thermite charges that burned hot enough to melt through ship hulls. Every weapon was designed to destroy completely. The briefing went on for hours. Zhang explained human combat doctrine, controlled aggression, acceptable casualties, overwhelming force, scorched earth if necessary. Each term made Kistal more afraid. These humans talked about death and destruction like other beings talked about the weather. 2 days later, they found a Ravager hive ship. It was massive, 3 times the size of the largest Vexari vessel. Its hull was a mixture of metal and organic material, constantly shifting and changing. Smaller Ravager craft swarmed around it like insects. Kistal watched from the command ship's observation deck. The human fleet moved into position with military precision. Their ships spread out, creating overlapping fields of fire. They did not hesitate. They did not try to communicate. They simply attacked. The first wave was missiles. Hundreds of them streaking through space. Many were intercepted by Ravager defenses, but enough got through. The nuclear detonations lit up the darkness like new suns. Kistal had to shield his eyes. The Ravager hive ship shuddered under the impacts. Then came the kinetic strikes. Massive railguns fired metal rods at a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit the hive ship, they punched straight through. Explosions bloomed along its hull. Pieces of the ship broke away, burning in the vacuum. The Ravagers fought back. Their weapons were powerful and strange. Energy beams that could slice through armor. Swarms of smaller craft that attached to human ships and began tearing them apart. Human casualties started mounting immediately. Kistal watched as one human ship took heavy damage. Its hull was breached in multiple places. The crew was dying, but instead of retreating, the ship accelerated. It rammed straight into the hive ship at full speed. The explosion was enormous. Both ships were destroyed completely. 500 humans died in that moment, Zhang said quietly next to him. They chose to do it. They saved the other 2 ships and gave us the opening we needed. Kisthal could not speak. His people would never make such a choice. Death was the ultimate failure. But humans seemed to accept it as just another tool. The remaining 2 human ships pressed the attack. They used their close-range weapons now. Particle beams, plasma cannons, missiles loaded with thermite that turned sections of the hive ship into burning metal. The Ravagers adapted quickly, but not quickly enough. They had never faced opponents who attacked with such focused violence. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Ravager hive ship was a burning wreck, tumbling through space. All the smaller Ravager craft were destroyed. But the human victory came at a terrible cost. 1 ship completely destroyed, the other 2 heavily damaged. 40% of the human forces were dead or wounded. Kaisthal accompanied Zhang to the medical bay. He had to see what this war cost. The wounded humans lay in rows. Some had lost limbs. Others had terrible burns. Many were unconscious. But those who were awake showed no fear. They joked with each other. They asked about the battle. They wanted to know if they had won. 1 young human, barely an adult, had lost both legs. He smiled at Zhang when she approached. "Did we get it, Commander?" he asked. Zhang nodded. "We got it." The young human closed his eyes in relief. "Good," he whispered. Then it was worth it. Kisthal had to leave. He went to an empty corridor and collapsed. His body shook. He could not stop the images in his mind. The violence, the death, the casual way humans accepted loss. He had lived for 300 years and never witnessed anything like this. Zhang found him there an hour later. She sat down next to him, saying nothing at first. Finally, she spoke. "This is what you asked for," she said quietly. "This is what war looks like. Not the clean battles you see in simulations. Real war is ugly and brutal. It breaks bodies and minds. But sometimes it is necessary." Kisthal looked at her. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you live with this?" Zhang was quiet for a long moment. "We do not have a choice," she finally said. "Earth made us this way. Everything on our world tried to kill us for hundreds of thousands of years. We learned to kill back. We learned to accept loss and keep fighting. It is not something we are proud of. It is just what we are." She stood up and helped Kisthal to his feet. "You should return to your people," she said. "Tell your council what happened here. Tell them we destroyed the hive ship, but also tell them the cost. They need to understand what they have bought with their request for help." Kisthal returned to Vexari space that day. He made his report to the council. He showed them the battle recordings. Several council members became physically ill. Others demanded the humans be sent away immediately. But Tevren, the High Counselor, understood. "The Ravagers are still coming," he said quietly. "And now we have seen the only beings who can stop them. We asked for help. This is what help looks like." The human base on the reclaimed Vexari colony looked like a scar on the planet's surface. Gray buildings made of prefabricated metal. Defensive walls topped with weapons. Everything was functional and harsh. It stood in sharp contrast to the beautiful crystal structures the Vexari had built before the Ravagers came. Kisthal returned to the planet as a liaison. He had volunteered, though many of his people thought he was insane. The council wanted someone who understood the humans to work with them. After witnessing the first battle, Kisthal knew that understanding humans might be impossible. But he would try. The humans had begun training Vexari volunteers in what they called defensive tactics. Kisthal observed the first training session with growing horror. Sergeant Marcus Cole, a human with scars on his face and kind eyes, was teaching young Vexari how to fight. "The concept is simple," Cole explained to the confused students. "If something threatens your life or the lives of others, you must be willing to hurt it. To kill it if necessary." The Vexari students looked at each other in distress. Their entire culture was built on avoiding harm. They had never even considered intentionally hurting another being. One young Vexari named Salith spoke up, his voice shaking. "But violence is wrong," he said. "All life is precious. We cannot simply destroy it because it threatens us." Cole looked at him with something like sadness. "That is a beautiful belief," he said quietly. "I wish more humans thought that way. But the Ravagers do not share your belief. They will kill you and everyone you love. You must choose. Die with your principles or live by doing something you think is wrong." The training continued day after day. The Vexari struggled with every lesson: how to hold a weapon, how to aim, how to overcome the instinct that screamed at them that this was wrong. Many gave up and left, but some stayed. They understood what Cole had said. Death was coming either way. At least this way they had a choice. Kisthal spent his evenings talking with the human soldiers. He wanted to understand them. He needed to know how beings could live with such violence inside them. One night he sat with Cole in the mess hall. The sergeant was eating something that smelled terrible. Human food was another mystery. "Why are you like this?" Kisthal asked. Cole looked up from his meal. "Like what?" he asked. "So comfortable with violence," Kisthal said. "You teach killing like other beings teach art? You accept death like it means nothing." Cole put down his fork. He was quiet for a long moment. "Let me tell you about Earth," he finally said. "Our world is not like yours. It is beautiful, yes. But it is also deadly. When humans first evolved, we were weak, small, slow. Everything wanted to eat us. Predators with teeth and claws. Diseases that killed entire groups. Weather that could freeze or burn us. We survived by being smart and vicious," he continued, his voice soft. "Then we had the ice ages. Imagine your world covered in ice for thousands of years. Most life died. Humans survived by working together and hunting animals bigger and stronger than us. We learned to make weapons. We learned to kill things that could kill us. It became part of who we are. But surely you evolved past that," Kisthal said. "You have technology now. You have civilization." Cole smiled sadly. "We did. But Earth kept teaching us the same lessons. Plagues killed millions. Wars taught us new ways to destroy each other. Even today, Earth is dangerous. Storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, animals that can kill us. We never got to forget how to fight because our world never let us." Kisthal thought about his own world. Perfect weather. No predators. Abundant resources. His people had never needed to fight for survival. They had been safe for so long they forgot that the universe could be dangerous. The humans had never had that luxury. 3 weeks after the training began, the Ravagers attacked the base. Alarms screamed across the compound. Human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, grabbing weapons and taking positions. The Vexari volunteers froze in fear. This was real now. Not training. Real death coming for them. The Ravager ground forces were nightmares made real. Biomechanical creatures that moved on metal legs and organic tentacles. They had weapons grown from their own bodies. They were fast and deadly. Dozens of them rushed toward the base walls. The humans met them with fire. Literally. Flamethrowers turned the attacking creatures into burning torches. Explosive traps hidden in the ground tore others apart. Human soldiers fired their weapons with calm precision. Each shot was meant to kill. And it did. Kisthal watched from a defensive position. Cole was near the front line, his left arm hanging at a wrong angle. It was clearly broken, but he kept fighting. He fired his weapon one-handed. He shouted orders to his squad. He threw a grenade that destroyed 3 Ravagers at once. He did not retreat. He did not stop. A Ravager broke through the defenses and charged toward a group of Vexari civilians huddled behind a building. Cole saw it. He could have stayed in his defensive position. He had done his part. But he did not hesitate. He ran toward the creature, his broken arm flopping uselessly. He crashed into it with his full body weight, knocking it down. The two rolled on the ground. The Ravager's metal claws slashed at Cole, cutting deep wounds in his chest and legs. Cole pulled a knife with his good hand and stabbed the creature repeatedly until it stopped moving. Then he collapsed. Blood poured from his wounds. Medics rushed to him, but he pushed them away. "Get the civilians out first," he gasped. Kisthal stood frozen. He had just watched a human choose to suffer terrible injury to save beings from another species. Beings he barely knew. Cole could have let the Ravager kill those civilians and stayed safe, but he did not even consider it. He acted on instinct. The instinct to protect others, even at cost to himself. The battle ended after 2 hours. All the Ravagers were dead, but the humans had paid in blood. 18 dead, 43 wounded. The medical bay was full of broken bodies, but the base had held. The civilians were safe. Kisthal visited Cole in the medical bay that evening. The sergeant was covered in bandages. His broken arm was in a cast. The claw wounds had required surgery, but he was awake and alert. When he saw Kisthal, he tried to smile. "Did we save them?" he asked. "The civilians?" "Yes," Kisthal said quietly. "You saved them." "Why did you do that?" "You could have died." Cole looked confused by the question. "They needed help," he said simply. What else would I do? That moment changed something in Kistal. He began to understand. Humans were violent, yes. They knew how to kill, but they also knew how to sacrifice. They carried both darkness and light inside them. They were capable of terrible things, but they chose to use those capabilities to protect others. A week later, Ambassador Chen addressed the full Galactic Council via transmission. Kistal watched the broadcast from the human base. Chen stood tall and spoke with calm authority. "You asked for help," she said. "We have given it. But I want you to understand what this costs. Every battle we fight, we lose people. Good people who chose to protect you. They suffer and die so that you can live in peace," she continued. "We do not ask for thanks. We do not expect you to understand what we do. But we ask that you remember this. Peace has a price. Someone must be willing to pay it. For thousands of years you have lived without paying that price. Now you know what it costs. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge?" The council chamber was silent after her speech. Some members looked ashamed. Others looked angry. But they all understood now. They had asked for monsters to fight their battles. What they got were scarred warriors who knew the cost of victory and paid it anyway. Dr. Amara Okafor had been studying the Ravagers for 2 months. She was a xenobiologist, a human scientist who specialized in alien life. What she had learned terrified her. The Ravagers were not mindless destroyers. They were intelligent, more intelligent than anyone had realized. She presented her findings to Commander Zhang and Ambassador Chen in a secure briefing room. The data she showed them changed everything. "The Ravagers are not from this region of space," she explained. "They came from somewhere else, somewhere in the deep dark between galaxies, and they are running from something." "Running?" Chen asked. "From what?" Okafor brought up images of Ravager communications they had intercepted. "We do not know exactly, but the Ravagers are terrified of it. Whatever it is worse than them. They came to this galaxy seeking refuge, but they cannot coexist peacefully. Their biology requires them to consume and adapt." Zhang studied the data carefully. "Can we communicate with them?" she asked. Okafor nodded slowly. "I believe so. But there is something else you need to know. The Ravagers have a queen, a single intelligence that controls the entire swarm. Kill her and they all die, or at least become disorganized enough to defeat easily. The Human Intelligence Division located the queen within a week. She was inside a hollowed-out moon in deep space, far from any inhabited system. The moon had been converted into a massive nest, filled with millions of Ravager drones. It was the most heavily defended location they had ever seen. Zhang proposed an infiltration mission. 200 elite soldiers would enter the nest, fight their way to the queen, and either force her surrender or kill her. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. The casualty estimates were over 90%. But it was also the only way to end the war quickly. Ambassador Chen presented the plan to the Galactic Council. The reaction was immediate and negative. Counselor Sepharin stood up, his feathers ruffled in agitation. "This is assassination," he said angrily. "We do not kill leaders. We do not launch attacks designed purely to destroy. This is barbaric." Chen looked at him coldly. "The Ravagers have destroyed 16 worlds in the past month," she said. "Millions are dead. Millions more will die if we do not act. You asked for our help to stop them. This is how we stop them. The Council refuses to authorize the mission. Too risky. Too violent. Too many violations of their laws and ethics." That night, Chen made a decision that would change everything. She sent the order to Zhang. Launch the mission. Do it without Council approval. Earth would bear the consequences. The war needed to end, and the Council would never have the courage to do what was necessary. The strike team assembled in secret. 200 of Earth's best soldiers. They wore advanced armor that could withstand the harsh environment inside the nest. They carried weapons designed by Dr. Okafor specifically to kill Ravagers, chemical weapons that would disrupt their biological functions, electromagnetic pulses that would fry their cybernetic parts. Sergeant Cole was part of the team. His injuries from the base attack had healed enough for him to fight. Kistal had asked to go with them. Cole had refused at first. "You are not trained for this," he said. "You will die." Kistal looked at him steadily. "Then I will die with you," he said. "My people need to be part of this." "We cannot let you pay all the costs," Cole eventually agreed. He gave Kistal a weapon and basic armor. He spent hours teaching him how to move, how to shoot, how to survive. The Vexari was a terrible soldier. But he was brave. That counted for something. They infiltrated the nest through a weak point in its outer hull. The inside was a nightmare of organic tunnels and mechanical structures. Everything was wet and warm. The air smelled like decay and machine oil. Ravager drones moved through the passages in swarms, but the human team avoided them when possible. This was not about fighting every enemy. This was about reaching the Queen. They lost 30 soldiers in the first hour. Ambushes, traps, patrols they could not avoid. Each death was quick and brutal, but the team kept moving forward. They had a mission. Dying was expected. Failing was not acceptable. Kisthal fought alongside Cole, trying not to vomit inside his helmet. He had killed 3 Ravager drones so far. Each time felt like a piece of his soul was torn away. But he kept going. Cole had been right. Sometimes you had to do terrible things to protect what mattered. They reached the Queen's chamber after 6 hours of fighting. 70 soldiers had died getting there, but they had made it. The chamber was huge, the size of a stadium. In the center was the Queen. She was massive, 10 times the size of a regular Ravager. Her body was a mixture of flesh and machine, beautiful and horrible at the same time. Zhang stepped forward. Dr. Okafor had provided a translation device. The Queen's voice came through it, deep and resonant. "So," the Queen said, "the Deathworlders have come. I wondered when you would find me." Zhang raised her weapon but did not fire yet. "We are here to give you a choice," she said. "Leave this galaxy peacefully or die here." The Queen made a sound like laughter. "A choice?" she said. "You understand choice requires options. I have none. My kind cannot survive without consuming. We fled from something far worse than you can imagine. This galaxy was our refuge. Now you tell me to leave or die. Then we will relocate you," Zhang said. "There are uninhabited systems. Worlds with resources but no intelligent life. You can consume there without harming anyone." The Queen was silent for a long moment. "And if I refuse?" she asked. Zhang's voice was cold. "Then we kill you here and now. Your swarm dies with you." The Queen studied them with compound eyes. "You would do it," she said. "You would kill me without hesitation. I can sense it in you. You are predators. Like me," she paused. "But you offer mercy when you do not have to." "That is interesting." "Test me," she said suddenly. "Prove you are apex predators, then I will decide." Before Zhang could respond, the Queen attacked. Not with her full force. "A test," as she said. She sent a wave of drones at them. Hundreds of them pouring from the walls. The human soldiers opened fire immediately. The chamber became chaos. The humans fought like they had been born for it. Because they had. Earth had made them into perfect survivors. They moved as a unit. They covered each other. When one soldier fell, another took their place. They used their weapons with brutal efficiency. Bullets, explosives, bioweapons that melted Ravager flesh. Kisthal fought next to Cole. His weapon was almost empty. A drone came at him from the side. He did not have time to aim. Cole threw himself in front of Kisthal, taking the blow meant for the Vexari. The drone's claw tore through Cole's armor. Blood sprayed. Cole went down. Kisthal screamed. Something inside him broke. All his peaceful beliefs, all his gentle nature burned away in a moment of pure rage. He grabbed Cole's fallen weapon and charged the drone. He fired until the weapon was empty. Then he beat the creature with the weapon itself until it stopped moving. He had become, for just a moment, as violent as any human. The battle ended. 80% of the Queen's test force was dead. But so were 50 more human soldiers. Only 70 humans remained. They stood among the bodies of their friends, weapons ready. Zhang walked up to the Queen, blood on her armor. "Satisfied?" she asked. The Queen bowed her massive head. "You are apex predators," she said. "More dangerous than my kind. You kill with purpose. You sacrifice for each other. You fight when you know you will die. These are not the actions of prey. I accept your offer. We will go to your uninhabited systems. We will leave the inhabited worlds alone." Zhang nodded. "But know this," she said. "If you break this agreement, we will hunt you down. We will not stop until every last Ravager is destroyed. This is not a threat. It is a promise." The Queen understood. "I believe you," she said. "You have earned that right." Kisthal knelt beside Cole. The sergeant was still alive, barely. Medics were working on him. Cole looked up at Kisthal and smiled weakly. "You did good," he whispered. Kisthal could not speak. He had crossed a line he never thought he would cross. He had killed in rage. He had become violent, and part of him did not regret it. The strike team left the nest with their wounded. Of the 200 who went in, only 53 walked out. The rest were dead or too injured to move. But they had succeeded. The war was over. The Ravagers would relocate peacefully under human supervision. When news reached the Galactic Council, the reaction was mixed. Some members celebrated the end of the war. Others were furious that humanity had acted without authorization. They called it an act of aggression. They demanded answers. Ambassador Chen gave them one. "We saved you," she said simply. "While you debated and argued, we acted. 147 humans died to end this war. They did it because someone had to. Because you asked for help and we answered. If that makes us monsters in your eyes, then we accept that title. But remember who you call when the next threat comes, because it will come. It always does." 1 year after the war ended, the Galactic Council chambers looked different. There were more guards now, more weapons. The council members themselves looked different too. They carried themselves with less certainty. The universe had taught them something they had forgotten. Peace was not guaranteed. The debate over humanity's place in the galaxy had raged for months. Some species wanted humans expelled from council space entirely. They called humans dangerous, unstable, too violent to coexist with peaceful civilizations. Others argued that humanity had saved them, that without human intervention, the Ravagers would have consumed everything. Today was the final vote. Ambassador Chen stood before the council one last time. She looked older now. The war had aged her. Gray had spread through her hair. Lines had deepened around her eyes. But she stood straight and spoke with quiet authority. "Before you vote," Chen said, "I want you to hear from someone else." She gestured to the side. Kisthal walked into the chamber. Many council members recognized him. He was the Vexari liaison who had worked with the humans, who had fought alongside them. Kisthal looked different than he had a year ago. His crystal body still flickered with light, but there was something harder about him now, something that had not been there before. He had seen war. It had changed him. "Honorable council members," Kisthal began. His voice was steady. "I speak to you as someone who was terrified of humans, who watched them fight and was horrified by their capacity for violence. I will not lie to you. Humans are dangerous. They know how to kill in ways we cannot imagine. They accept casualties that we would consider catastrophic. They make decisions that seem cold and brutal to us." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But I also watched a human sergeant throw himself in front of me to save my life. I watched humans die protecting civilians from a world not their own. I learned that humans are not monsters. They are beings shaped by a harsh world. They carry violence inside them, yes, but they also carry something else. Honor, sacrifice, the willingness to suffer so others do not have to." Kisthal looked around the chamber. "My people have begun learning from humans," he said. "Not how to be violent, but how to be strong. We call it the shepherd's blade philosophy. A shepherd must protect the flock. Sometimes that means fighting the wolves. We do not seek violence, but we no longer run from it either. Humanity taught us that peace requires guardians, and guardians must sometimes do difficult things." He stepped back. Chen spoke again. "You begged for aid," she said. Her voice was firm but not angry. "You called us when no one else could help. We came, we fought, we bled. 147 humans died fighting your war. They did not die for glory. They did not die for conquest. They died because we believe that peace is worth protecting, even someone else's peace." She looked each council member in the eye. "I am not asking you to love us," she continued. "I am not even asking you to trust us. But I am asking you to be honest about what we are. We are fire. Fire destroys, yes. But fire also protects. It keeps the darkness away. It warms the cold. It makes life possible in hostile places. We are the fire that keeps the monsters at bay. But fire always burns. The question is whether you can accept that." The council chamber was silent. Then Councillor Sephirin stood. He was one of the members who had opposed involving humans from the start. Chen expected him to speak against humanity, but he surprised her. "I have opposed humanity at every step," Sephirin said. His feathers were ruffled with emotion. "I called you dangerous, unstable. I wanted you far from our civilization. I was wrong. Not about your danger. You are dangerous. But I was wrong about what that means. We built a galaxy where danger was removed, where everyone was safe and comfortable. We forgot that safety is not natural. It must be maintained. Sometimes with force. He looked at Chen. I vote to grant humanity full council membership, he said, but with conditions. You will be our defenders, our warriors. You will patrol our borders and respond to threats, but you will be watched. Not because we do not trust you, but because power requires oversight. Can you accept these terms? Chen nodded slowly. We accept, she said. We will be your shield. We will stand between you and whatever threatens you. But remember this, we are not your servants. We are your partners. We will have a voice in council decisions. We will be respected for what we do. If you can agree to that, then we have a deal. The vote was called. This time it was not close. 42 for, 8 against. Humanity was granted conditional membership in the Galactic Council. They would be the defenders. The warriors. The ones who did what others could not. It was not the welcome they might have hoped for. But it was honest. And sometimes honesty was more valuable than friendship. After the vote, Chen returned to Earth. She went to Arlington National Cemetery, where many of the fallen from the Ravager War were buried. Row after row of white stones marked the graves of soldiers who had died in space, far from home. She walked among them, reading names. At one grave she stopped. Sergeant Marcus Cole died in service to Earth and the Galactic Council. He had survived the mission to the Ravager nest. But his injuries had been too severe. He lived for 3 months after returning home, long enough to receive medals, long enough to say goodbye to his family. Then he was gone. Someone had left flowers on his grave. Fresh flowers, replaced regularly. Chen learned later that they came from Vixari civilians, the ones Cole had saved in that base attack. They sent flowers every week. They would never forget the human who had protected them. A small voice spoke behind her. Excuse me. Chen turned. A young girl stood there, maybe 8 years old. She held a drawing in her hands. Are you Ambassador Chen? The girl asked. Chen nodded. The girl held out the drawing. It showed stick figures of soldiers and aliens together. My teacher said you helped save the galaxy, the girl said. I wanted to say thank you. Chen took the drawing. Her throat was tight. The girl looked up at her with innocent eyes. Are we the bad guys? She asked. My friend said humans are scary and mean. Chen knelt down to the girl's level. She thought about how to answer. Finally she spoke. No, Chen said gently. We are not the bad guys, but we are not exactly the good guys either. We are the ones who do difficult things so others can be safe. We protect people. Sometimes that means we have to be scary, but we only use that scariness to help, never to hurt innocent people. Does that make sense? The girl thought about it and nodded. Like how my dad looks scary when he yells, but he only yells to keep me safe? She asked. Chen smiled. Yes, exactly like that. The girl ran off to join her mother. Chen stood up and looked around the cemetery. This was what they protected. Not governments or civilizations in the abstract, but little girls who could draw pictures and ask innocent questions. Families who could visit graves and leave flowers. Simple, peaceful lives. Earth had changed in the past year. Humanity now had a purpose beyond survival. They were guardians of the galaxy. It was a heavy burden, but humans had always carried heavy burdens. It was what they did best. In orbit above Earth, the first Warden Station was being built. It would be one of 12 stations positioned at the galaxy's borders. Each one would house human military forces ready to respond to any threat. The stations were heavily armed, intimidating, a clear message to anything that might threaten the peace. Commander Zhang supervised the construction from her new flagship. She looked out at the stars and thought about the future. There would be more wars, more battles, more losses, but there would also be more victories. More lives saved, more civilizations protected. It was worth the cost. It had to be. On Vexar, Kisthal trained a new generation of defenders. They learned human tactics, human strategies, but they also kept their Vexari values. They did not seek violence, but they no longer fled from it. They were becoming something new. Not human, not the old Vexari, something in between, strong enough to protect themselves, gentle enough to remember why they fought. One evening, a young Vexari student asked Kisthal a question. Teacher, the student said, will we become like humans? Will we lose ourselves? Kisthal thought about Cole, about Chen, about all the humans he had known. No, he said finally, we will not become humans. We will become better versions of ourselves. Humans taught us that strength and compassion can exist together, that protecting others sometimes requires difficult choices. We take that lesson and make it our own. Across the galaxy, other species began creating their own defense forces. The Mantri, the Sephar, even the most peaceful races understood now. Hope was not enough. Prayer was not enough. Sometimes you needed warriors. But they did not have to be human warriors. They just had to be willing to stand up when darkness came. Humanity watched this with satisfaction. They had not wanted to be the galaxy's only defenders. That was too much burden for one species. But they would always be ready. Always watching. Always prepared to do what others could not or would not do. The Ravagers kept their promise. They settled in the uninhabited systems humanity had designated for them. They consumed resources there but harmed no one. The Ravager Queen sent occasional messages to Jung, brief reports, updates on their situation, and always a reminder. We remember, she would say. We remember who showed us mercy when they could have destroyed us. 5 years after the war, Ambassador Chen retired. She was tired. The weight of the decisions she had made, the lives lost under her command, had worn her down. She returned to a small house on Earth. She spent her days in her garden growing flowers. Simple, peaceful work. But sometimes young diplomats and soldiers would visit her. They would ask for advice, for wisdom, and she would tell them the same thing every time. We are the fire, she would say. We burn bright and hot. We protect and destroy. Never forget that. Never use that power carelessly, but never be afraid to use it when necessary. The galaxy needs its guardians, and guardians must be willing to bear the weight of their choices. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as the ones who stood in the darkness so others could live in the light. They were trusted but never quite accepted, respected but always feared. It was a lonely position, but someone had to fill it. And humans, shaped by a world that had tried to kill them for hundreds of thousands of years, were built for it. The galaxy was safer now. Not perfect, never perfect, but safer. And that was enough. That was worth everything they had sacrificed, worth every life lost, worth every scar carried, because in the end, the measure of any civilization was simple. Did you protect those who could not protect themselves? Did you stand against the darkness? Did you carry the fire? Humanity's answer had been yes, and they would keep saying yes for as long as the galaxy needed them, because that was what humans did. They endured, they fought, they protected, not because they enjoyed it, but because someone had to, and they had always been the ones willing to do what others feared. In the end, the aliens had begged for aid. They got the Deathworlders, they got the fire, and the galaxy would never be the same again.